YouTube homies, the way I rank my tier lists are based on how the killers perform against Swift, their add-ons, map dependency. Gonna start off with, I think, what everybody can still just agree on. I'm really not gonna go to nurse much here. You hear it all the time. Any tier list you probably watch will be #1. It's just cheating. She ignores everything in the entire game, just blinks through it all. Can't use exposed stuff anymore, which is good, but the killer is actually cheating. There's no looping it. You just run around stuff and hope you body block her blink, or she doesn't make the perfect read once. And then she has basically no recovery on her blinks and just can do it again in 2 seconds anyway. So, top of the pack right there. Blight is still here. Add-ons are still super solid. Nothing over the top stupid like old Compound 33, just completely removing any skill from the killer, which it did before. Not cool. I didn't like that add-on at all. But, I mean, yeah, now there's actual drawbacks on some of the add-ons that are not totally overtuned. Still, killer's amazing. Probably the best map pressure in the game, except for the one who's coming up next. On top of being able to get really good value out of a lot of the perks. He's a 115 killer. Being able to make it anywhere on the map is a super, super, super strong ability, especially with perks like Pop being super meta still, which is awesome. I'm not going to break down every one of their add-ons in this tier list, but I just know that when I'm placing them, their add-ons do come into play because a lot of them without them could have dropped a lot or possibly been a lot lower on the tier list without them. And yeah, I mean, he could deal with the Swifts. He could deal with pretty much any map in the game. There's a couple indoor ones that can be a little bit wonky to use your power, but still it's fine, like Hawkins and stuff like that. It's still fine. Blight's still extremely good. Being 115 means even if you don't get the best map for you, he's still going to be able to play around loops like a normal killer. And Hawkins has a lot of unsafe pallets. I don't know why I'm going into Hawkins, but anyway, #3, we got our girl Artist. We love her. Everybody loves her. If you don't love her, why the hell are you here? Go somewhere else. Go watch a different tier list. Artist is amazing. Can do anything you want her to. Long range, mid range, zoning, you know, trapping pallets, stuff like that. Being able to set up slingshots on hooks, pressuring people while you're in chase, making it impossible for people to heal. Multi-hits with the severed hands. Really, really chill add-ons for the most part. Severed hands is going to be her best one for that pressure, especially off unhooks and stuff, while you're being able to pressure other gens, making it so basically the entire team just can't do anything once you get that first hook, especially with insane perks on her like DMS and Pain Res working really, really well. Barbecue's probably her #1 or #2 perk as well. Really, really solid with anything meta. Again, outside of just her, the potential for her to get those insane cross map hits and stuff like that, double hits, her zoning is just so ridiculous. And if people don't know exactly what they're doing it against Artist, or can't just make a guess like you would against Nurse, you're getting hit in any tile in the game. There's just nothing that you can really do. So she'll always be towards the top for me unless they made some real changes to her. And I encourage you guys, if you guys disagree, to maybe try her out a little bit more and really practice with her and see the things she's capable of, because it is disgusting. Next up is still Spirit, and anytime I hop on this killer, I'm basically running no perks because the down speeds and everything are just so ridiculous, and you really don't need to put a lot of effort in like you would some of these other killers towards the top. You know, you just crank up the headphones a bit, listen, play her like 5 or so games so you can get a good feel of exactly when people are close to you in phase, and you can get your volume all adjusted. And she is a total breeze. Probably some of, if not the easiest hits you'll ever get in DBD once you put just a little bit of time into her. Very limited the amount of things survivors can actually do, and you can still mind game with her phase, faking people out with that sound and stuff. MDR is still an extremely insane add-on. Rusty Flute really helps her out with power recovery. The Yakiyoke amulet is not broken like it used to be. It's been quite a few patches since that happened, so I'm only mentioning it because I do like to dive into the add-ons. The speed add-ons and the recharge are still ridiculous on this killer. And like I said, she could play around so many tiles with that power, faking people out and mind gaming and just stuff that other killers could never be able to do. And it's really simple to do as well. So I think just being able to pick up Spirit and dominate really strong teams is something that you have to put her towards the top, if not, in the top 3, towards the top for sure. Okay, at the top of the A tier is my boy Oni, who I also pretty much all the time I play him, I just run perkless. Pretty much all these killers towards the top here, I run extremely chill stuff on, or basically nothing. Oni has super, super good add-ons that you don't have to think about at all. Powers that, or add-ons that just activate his power faster, make him move faster in his power, make his power last longer, more blood orbs. You don't really have to do anything or think about much to really be getting insane value out of these things. And they're all super, super good on their own, but the fact that you can combine, like, the faster activation with the faster movement speed makes playing around some loops with his power just ridiculous. He is probably one of, if not the hardest snowballer in the game just off his power alone. Used to be Nurse, where she could run Starstruck and stuff like that. Absolutely broken. But you have to understand, if Oni could run his power the entire match without being broken out of it, similar to like what Billy has with his chainsaw, he would be easily the best killer in the entire game. The power is so insane. You can play around basically anything. The mind games you can do, the 180s, the flicks, the really, really solid add-ons to pair with it. The killer is disgusting. His map mobility is awesome. When you're in that power, you really feel like a fucking freight train, and I love him. He was the first killer I ever mained before I really got into artists and stuff like that. Super fun, super, super good to be learning how to run an M1 killer very well also, because you have to learn how to be an M1 killer to be able to get into your power in the first place. Otherwise, he's just walking around with nothing. But yeah, I mean, the ability to just play around terror radius based stuff with info like Infectious, our ultimate weapon, gen blocking stuff, gen kicking stuff, all the meta Oni can do extremely, extremely well with. And yeah, he's insanely solid. Obviously, you can't be taking hits against him either. When he's got his power, you're just all going down. There's no way for you to be grouping up, getting value out of Prove Thyself, and just slamming through gens if he's got that, because you'll just lose the game for your team. Oni's insane. Very, very good. Next up in the A tier, we have Plague, who, while when there's coordinated teams who really understand how to play against Plague in each situation, getting value out of her red puke can be extremely difficult. The thing with this killer is that her add-ons are just so fucking off-the-wall bonkers that it almost doesn't matter. So there are going to be maps where she's going to have trouble getting full value out of it. Stuff like Midwich, people could just W key and you can't get the super long range stuff because of the ceilings and stuff. Even Hawkins, Larry's, that kind of thing can be a little bit tough to be getting full value out of the power. But pretty much outside of that, you bring an apple or two, even with the amulet to extend your power's duration. And this killer is so unstoppable, pretty much on any outdoor map. Ways to play around Infection as Plague are not always super obvious to the average team. Again, I am trying to talk about mainly Swifts here. Even Swifts who aren't like thousands and thousands of hours in DBD just really don't know exactly the play most of the time, whether you should be all cleansing or nobody cleansing, or one person making sure they're healthy to be able to go for unhooks and stuff like that. It's not always super clear because, yeah, it's just not one of those powers that's just, you pick up an EMP and you're in God mode like against Singularity. Really, really solid at keeping people injured, obviously, because of that. And the snowball potential is right up there with Oni. Because everybody's going to be injured with such an insane power as her Corrupt Purge, you could be just mowing down people all at once. Unhooks against Plague are absolutely impossible, whether she's in power or not. Being able to fully infect somebody unhooking and then just hitting them because they don't get any distance from that injure is obviously very, very good. If somebody's body blocking, you have your red puke, you hit everybody. There's no way. It's always just a lose-lose for the survivors in these situations if she's playing around an area, which is also an extremely strong ability. And again, now that Blight's add-ons have been tuned down, her add-ons are the most disgusting in the entire game. From Eerie down to Yellow, they're absolutely fucking disgusting. Even some little weird brown ones that can get some value. Now, I wouldn't say they're like OP in the brown category at all, but it's disgusting. And Those I think could be looked at, and she might be bumped down a bit. But either way, for now, this is where she's at for me personally. Next up, in the A tier, we have Weskin time. He's got the mobility. He's got a sick chase power. He's got built-in slowdown, built-in info with the sprays. Really great add-ons across the board. Just little weird stuff that... The one thing I want to make a complaint on with his add-ons is it can be really, really hard on the survivor end to be able to know exactly what's going to be happening in each chase against Wesker at first. You know, whether he's got the unicorn medallion to be able to play around Shaq insanely well. Whether he's got the egg to have a little bit extra time on his power. That's not super obvious to the survivor. And I really think his like hug tech is just a complete blatant exploit. You have to go so far to your way to be able to get that down consistently that it's ridiculous. You know, Blight, you just slip off stuff without even trying to. You have to go so far out of your way to be using his hug tech that, to me, it's just a blatant exploit. So I don't want to go into that when we're talking about Wesker's skill ceiling, but it is very high. Bumping or bouncing off stuff with Wesker, very, very high. Being able to flick into little objects and stuff and get value out of your power without just chucking people into the wide open. Really important as well. You know, he can slam survivors into each other off unhooks and stuff. Insanely good at tunneling, especially if you have the herb. You can just hit people who are already infected off a hook in like 5 or so seconds when you have the herb. They're already fully infected. That's an 8% slow where you can just run them down and there's almost nothing they can do. Just so many different things with this killer that make him absolutely amazing. Just pretty much has it all, similar to Artist, but does not just completely ignore loops in the same way and doesn't quite have the map pressure. So even though he's super solid, he's not quite as good as the rest of the squad. Still has little things that that do hurt him, and you know, people can play pretty safe in some of these maps now. Maps with bad hitboxes can be a little bit tricky for him to be getting value out of his power. Still really, really fun, really, really solid killer, and that's why he's been one of the most popular since he came out. He is awesome. This one might ruffle some feathers. I don't know. Maybe I'm going off the deep end with this one, but I think next after Wesker right now is the unknown. The hits you can get on this killer, his mobility, his little built-in slowdown, some of the little tricky things you can do with his add-ons, the amounts of builds you can run, insane. The way it's impossible, completely impossible to take a hit against the killer because everybody's just going to be getting injured is fucking gross. I actually played one game on Ormond against this like comp squad where they were trying really hard to save this teammate they had, and it's just impossible. They all just get nuked. 3 people on the ground in 5 seconds. It's impossible to deal with. Gets great value out of all the meta stuff. Again, super, super cool killer. Very fun. I thought from the second I saw him on the PTB, I just loved him. I think he's insane. If he had more insane add-ons similar to Plague, he could even go higher, in my opinion. He doesn't have those game-breaking add-ons. He has basically no map dependency from what I've seen. You know, little weird hitboxes on the maps can make it kind of tricky to get the hits that you think you'd be able to get, which is one thing I'll complain about always, just, you know, DBD's collision and their hitboxes and stuff like that. But learning to play around that and stuff, getting the hits that you can get with him are just so ridiculous. And he does have just so much going for him that for now I'm putting him in the A tier. He could go a little higher or a little lower if I play him a little bit more. I do want to do more of a win streak with him to get a full feel for how strong the power is. But I do think he's awesome. And I definitely don't think you could put him in the B tier or any lower than in the A tier somewhere. I don't see it. So yeah, once I get a little bit more of a feel for him, I will maybe move this around in the next tier list. But for now, I'm going to put him at the 8th spot in the game. I think he's really, really cool. Now we're going to put Xeno right about here. Fantastic mobility. This is a killer with basically as little map dependency as it can get. So he's got to be high, in my opinion. Chase power is super solid. You can hit like really little tricky shots over some loops. Hit past survivors trying to body block as well if you need a tunnel. He does have the counterplay with the flamethrowers and stuff like that. but pretty easy to avoid if you have the emergency helmet. And can be really tricky to see him in a lot of loops as well because he is so low to the ground, or I don't know what gender the Xeno is, you know what I'm saying? He is so low to the ground that can be really, really tricky to see exactly what's going on sometimes. Yeah, so no map dependency on top of that one purple add-on that lets you vault really fast in runner mode. Lets you play around so many loops, pretty much everything in the game. Really good. Works super well, again, with all the meta perks and stuff. And just the down speed you can have on this guy is pretty insane. You know, just being able to get those quick hits back to back and denying people from chaining loops because of basically having a charged Huntress hatchet at all times. It doesn't quite go anywhere near as far, but just having it ready in loops at all times, the zoning is just doing it for you. You can just go for so many easy hits and stuff like that. Very, very, very good. And yeah, ever since he came out, I've loved Xeno. We got a 100 win streak on him. You should check that video out if you haven't. Super, super strong. And he's going to sit right there in the A tier. Next up is the Chuck. And now, I want to mention this before we go any farther into Chucky. His mobility around the map is pretty bad. But the ease and the speed you can be getting your downs on him with the meta stuff like Pain Res, Grim Embrace, DMS combined completely make up for that. Like, he can just be downing people so quick, and they have such limited options. Pre-dropping doesn't work. He can slide under them. This slice and dice is super strong once you practice with a little bit. Little mind games sometimes are necessary. He's got the wall hack add-on, though, that can really, really help you deciding exactly how to use your power and chase and getting super consistent value. That's the rat poison. Super consistent value out of his power in chase and in loops and stuff. Really, really easy mind games in a lot of areas for similar reasons to Xeno, where Xeno's low to the ground, but Chucky is almost invisible on the ground once you pop his stealth mode. It is so hard to see him. So, so hard. You know, and that third person stuff for mind games, being able to like hold check spots on a killer is really, really good. Really, really powerful as well. And yeah, he can play around God Palace no problem with the slice and dice. Doesn't have to sit there breaking a bunch of them like a lot of the other lower tier killers would. Very, very solid. As long as you're getting your downs fast on Chucky, he is a monster. Just need to know exactly when to be using your power and stuff like that. So there's a bit of a skill curve there. If they hadn't actually removed his ability to like 180 flick, I would probably put him higher. But I mean, he's still super, super good. I think he definitely deserves his spot up here towards the top. So another one that might be a hot take is, yeah, Billy is A tier now, in my opinion. After playing him as much as I have been, you know, there's still, don't get me wrong, it feels a little bit wonky to do this because there is still that map dependency. But I've played him a ton since he got changed and buffed. And maps like Hawkins that I used to load up on Billy, like Larry's, and just be like, oh my God, why me? Right? Now, I'm still getting very consistent downs with the chainsaw, especially with stuff like low pro. Very, very consistent. His overdrive is so good and so fun. He actually has a ton of usable add-ons now, which are all really solid, even from Brown up. Really, really, really solid. Obviously, you can't be taking hits against Billy, which is really strong for playing against Swift. People want to take hits for their teammates. You just rev that saw. They're going to probably try to dodge and you just down their teammate. Again, Bamboozle with the low pro chains makes any time in the game super easy to play around. You don't even need Bamboozle anymore on Billy. I do still love it because there are maps with those super chain tiles, and I really like going for those saw hits. Not that you have to every time, but yeah, I mean, he is super fun, amazing killer, crazy mobility on the maps where it's allowed. Really, really, really good chase power, even on the maps where it used to feel terrible. And he's just a blast. So I think Billy deserves his spot back in the A tier, which makes me so happy to do because pretty much since I started doing these things, he's been in the C tier in almost all my lists. So putting him here feels really, really good. And I love what Behavior did with him. And I hope you guys do too. You should definitely try him out. Survivors, on average, get more consistent with understanding how to play against killers. But I'm pretty happy to do this to a killer who I'm putting back in the A tier is Huntress. Recent buffs to her, more hatchets, faster windups and stuff like that, keeping her really, really strong add-on still. I think this has easily bumped Huntress up to back into the A tier. And some people thought she never left it, which is totally cool. I personally think she was a B tier killer for the past half year, maybe even year or so. But these recent changes have definitely bumped her up, in my opinion. I think she's incredibly solid. And there's so many tiles and wacky hits you can get with Huntress, you know, cross-map stuff people won't be expecting. Being able to learn her hitboxes and mind game people with her hatchets is also extremely strong. You can definitely get hits on her basically on people through walls if you just understand the hitboxes and know that they are basically a shipping crate you're chucking at people in some situations when they're fully charged up. But yeah, she's really, really good now. Her zoning's amazing too. That's something I do want to touch on a little bit. Really, really great add-on still. And, you know, when I'm talking about Swifts too, I've been talking a lot about people trying to take hits. If there's people clumped up, especially in a more open area, she's just chewing through hell states in seconds. If there's 3 people trying to take hits, hit. She just keeps moving, just hitting all of them. It's no problem. Really, really good at slugging, good at proxying. Can get crazy hits on people that like only artists can while still staying in another area. Now, artists can do it a lot better. That's why she's so much higher. But the potential is definitely there. And she's really, really fun too. So I'm more than happy to put her up here in the A tier. Okay, next up in the tier list, I am putting Singularity. Now, while he still does have some bad maps, and it can be a little clunky at times, the killer's really good at destroying resources, really good at gathering info and playing around it if people aren't on top of those EMPs and really taking care of his pods. But even then, on a lot of maps, he can still have the double setups and stuff to be able to monitor everything he needs to. He's really, really cool, too. The one thing that makes me sad about him is that whenever I play him, it feels like I need that Soma family photo to be getting full value out of his power, which kind of sucks. I'm not going to lie. But when you have it, he does feel extremely good in chase. And you can just destroy all the pallets on the map. Being able to, like, double vault stuff and get those crazy vault speeds with his overclock mode. Even in TLs, vaulting the windows is actually worth it, which is insane. It basically never is on any killer. Singularity, it's actually worth it to even vault TLs and chase, which is crazy to me. He is really fun. Again, a little bit clunky. Got some bad maps. And a strong team will definitely make life harder on him for sure. Still doable, though, on if he's not getting his worst maps. If he's getting his worst maps, you're against a strong team, he might be even a little lower. But I'm going to say, you know, we're not going to be generally playing against the best players in the world consistently on Singularity. So I'm going to put him right here. And, yeah, if you like him, definitely give him a whirl. Also, Coco Latte on YouTube. Makes a lot of Singularity content. He's a cool dude. Check those out if you want to find some stuff like that. Anyway, next on the tier list, I am putting Pyramidhead. And this is probably going to be our last killer in the A tier. Best tunneler in the game. Somebody messes up, steps in some torment, which you can hide a little bit on Pyramidhead. You'll learn if you tap his power a little bit in some loops and stuff like that, you can make it really, really sneaky spots where people won't even know they stepped in his trail, which is extremely powerful. The flicks you can get on him are crazy hits. Again, he has the potential to be hitting like 4 people all at once, which by itself, just potential-wise, puts him really, really high up on the list. Probably never going to happen, but it's just the fact that you can is pretty cool. But again, if someone's stepping on the torment, they are basically dead. You ignore any endurance stuff. You know, they don't even get E off the cages and stuff like that. Comboing that with some passive slowdown, making it obviously impossible to take hits against the killer. He just destroys people. One of, if not the best zoner in the entire game. Extremely good at zoning. And he can be a little bit clunky, but once you know what you're doing with Pyramidhead, there's a lot you can do with him. And he is very strong, very, very solid. Some of these other killers will be a lot more enjoyable to learn, in my opinion. I know there's definitely some Pyramidhead lovers out there. But for me personally, you know, I'd rather just pick up something like Unknown, be able to get those multi-hits and really, really satisfying stuff going on without having to deal with the clunk and some of the maps that Pyramidhead has to deal with. But again, yeah, super, super, super fun. Once you're getting those good maps, sometimes it can feel real bad. And I've definitely put him up here. The one thing, too, I did think about putting him lower on the tier list because his add-ons are so cheeks. But the thing is, honestly, he just doesn't need them. His base kit is good to the point where as long as you know what you're doing with it and you get consistent with him, you're focused up with that passive slowdown, he doesn't need some add-ons to just make him God mode like Plague. He just doesn't need it. And I think he's honestly fine where he's at. I'd like to see some more interesting ones. You know, Xenos, I guess, more just interesting, but we don't really need them to be just stronger, in my opinion. Next up, for the king of B tier, in my humble opinion, is Deathslinger. Again, I know I've touched on this in a couple of the last killers here, but he is a great zoner as well. Being able to hold up that gun and moving around and stuff, making it really, really hard for people to vault anything. Zoning them out to the outside of the map. People just zone themselves against this killer. The mend hits are really, really good for hit and run too. If you do want to still pressure an area and just take a free injure, that extra slowdown on top of everything, making it so they have to sit there and mend, is not something to just be ignored. Any extra time you can buy on a killer to be able to delay the gens is significant. Any amount of time you can do. Pain Res, Grim Embrace, and stuff like that really, really help him cover the map because he is 110, so he does have a little bit of a problem with that, but that really does help him out. People can have significant counterplay against Deathslinger, where you hit a shot when somebody's injured, and a teammate can come and block the chain from you being able to fully reel them in and stuff like that, which is something that you have to touch on. But he does have stuff like Eerie Coin. The Purple Cigar is probably his most consistent and best add-on right now. I like to use that with the tin oil can. So if I do miss a little bit going for an ambitious shot, I'm not punished too bad. And the cigar lets you just break a chain and have almost no recovery, so you can zone people wherever you want them and break the chain, having them on the outside of the map. Stop them from getting anywhere, reload, and down them in like 5 seconds, which is super strong. His down speed's crazy if you're accurate and you know what you're doing with him. And yeah, a lot of those really strong perks helping him out to cover the map, I think can land him in this spot for sure. Snowball can be really good. If people aren't healing against Deathslinger, he catches you in a little bit of a bad spot. You're down in 10 seconds. That's what it is. You know, his power is that good in chase. It really, really is no joke. And I would put him higher if you know, he could get or if he didn't have the problem with people body blocking. You know, if you could like reel through a survivor, I'd probably put him higher than he is even here. But there is that counterplay that we have to address. So I'm going to put him at the top of B tier for me. If you need to get somebody to hit another hook stage and they're just sending one person in for it, and they're about to hit like their next hook stage, they're about to die on hook or hit the second, you can literally just shoot the survivor and hold them. And they just cannot unhook their teammate. Which is also, like, there's so much little stuff with Deathslinger. He has some of the easiest injures in the game. Easier and more consistent than Legion for injuring. You know, you're not going to go around injuring every survivor immediately like Legion can with his add-ons and stuff. But the little gaps and stuff you can hit through to get free injures is seriously cracked, dude. It's cracked. Next up is Pinhead. He is very good. I've been getting a little annoyed with Pinhead lately because... Now, you already have the problem where, you know, you land your chains on a survivor and the chains just break on air. But now it feels like every patch there's a new bug with him that just makes it feel so much less interesting, in my opinion, and less fun. The box minigame is really, really fun to go for. Being able to identify where the box is going to be at and playing around that. Getting the chain hunts going. If you get a few of those in a game, you know, it's pretty much just a wrap. Especially you combo some good slowdown with them. It's gonna be really, really, really hard for the survivors to get the gens done at all. It's gonna be tough. And his chase power is good when it works. And when he's not buggy, he does feel good. Engineer's Fang is one of the most disgusting add-ons in the entire game right now, in my opinion. It is disgusting. Just a free injure with spawning the chain on somebody is so gross. But yeah, this killer is solid as hell, buggy, and they could really fix, again, some of those changes breaking on nothing, which can feel terrible. It feels like sometimes I'll just be playing the killer and be like, what was even the point of me using my power? Like, that just slowed me down. It just makes no sense. But, you know, he is fun, and it can be really satisfying, too. And then, third in the B tier, we're going to be putting Demo, who, he just got something going on all around. He's got that good mobility, good info on the gens with setting up portals on him and popping your shred. Solid chase power. Can get good value out of all the meta stuff. Not really any super game-changing add-ons. I pretty much just run Barb's Glasses and the Black Heart every single game I play of him, because it's just little quality of life to make his, or break the pallets a little bit faster and get a little quicker cooldown. But they did just gut one of his Eries recently, which was cracked for Devour Demo. Very, very cracked. But yeah, I mean, he's just solid. Like, his chase power is nothing ridiculous, like something like Billy or Chucky. His mobility's good, but it's not quite Xeno level, and it does require the setup. And his info's pretty decent too, but a lot of the times, you just don't really need that info. You can play off your game sense a lot once you've played enough, where that's not super important. He is good, though. Basically just has a fat lunge that you could pop a lot of the time. And it's good. He's a really good killer. There's not that much to say about him besides, you know, he's good. Not insane at anything. Next up is Knight, who, you know, one of the least interesting killers in the entire game, in my personal opinion. The idea of him is very cool. The aesthetic is super cool. You know, plopping down a guard that just an AI chasing a survivor for you on both sides to me is really uninteresting. But that's not the point of this tier list. You know, he's really, really good at splitting pressure, which is super good for killers in DBD. Can play around with Dead Man's Switch super well. Pushing people off the generators all at once, making it so, you know, he can be making it so almost nobody's touching a gen at a time. Plays really, really well with stuff like Discordance and Mindbreaker, so people can't just sprint burst off the gen when you plop a guard on them. You know, that, like I said, that Dead Man Switch and stuff. A lot of the really strong perks do really, really well on Knight. A big problem with him is it feels like there's a few add-ons that you need to run to be getting consistent value from the guards, which will definitely subtract value from the Knight. But when you use them, really, really easy to get the guards going on people. And at that point, they're going to be taking a free hit in a lot of situations, especially if you have the Assassin. They're just going to be taking a hit for free, which is obviously strong. While I don't really find it fun or interesting, it's really strong to be able to force hits like that, even in some of the really, really strong tiles and stuff that are in the game. So, for that reason, I'm going to put him in B tier, again, along with the map pressure. He's solid. Knight's really, really solid. Next up, we have the new Hag, who was also just recently buffed. A lot of little love given to Hag. Again, she's one of those killers that can really have a ton of counterplay. You can get unlucky with where you and the survivor spawn. So setting up your web right away, they can just demolish it and make you pretty much have no power. And you have to continuously keep setting it up throughout the game. It's not like Trapper where you plop down a trap and, you know, you can just kind of leave it there. She has to keep doing it the whole time. She's really, really good at playing in an area. But with the recent gen changes, making it so you can only damage a gen up to 8 times, it makes that playstyle a lot worse to begin with, which is why she's still lower than she was years ago, in my opinion. Again, with the counterplay on top of everything, she has a couple little add-ons that are really nice, like Mint Rag, Rusty Shackles, stuff like that are nice add-ons for Hag, for sure. And I'm not going to say that they're not. But again, there's a killer like Unknown who can instant teleport with an insane ranged attack that can hit through walls and hit multiple people at once. There's Alien, who can move at 115 with ridiculous mobility and be getting the same exact hits when you're pushing people where you need them to be with the tail. She's good at playing around basement. She's good at playing around a tight little area with gens, but that's just not good right now. Playing around a 3 or 4 gen setup right now in DBD isn't a good strategy. Survivors can outlast it easily if they're paying a little bit of attention to where your traps are and just completely disable your power, which drops her quite a bit. She does have a crazy snowball potential. There's a few maps where it can be really impossible to see where her traps are, and she can really just get a mean snowball going with people injured and just slugging people and, you know, getting a lot of pressure for free that way. But there are also a lot of situations where it's just tough for her. And for that reason, we're going to slap her right there in the middle of the pack of B tier for me. Next up in B tier is Skull Merchant, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, I feel a little disingenuous ranking Skull Merchant at all, because there's just so many of my games where I'm not even playing against humans, so it's really, really hard for me to get a great judge on exactly how strong she is. But there are a lot of games when I am playing against people that the injures are just super free. Does really, really well with Dissolution still as a perk slot for her. Her stealth is not to be underestimated. You can get the jump on people a lot with the undetectable every time you place a drone. Really solid info. And, you know, that slow in chase, once people have the claw trap on, is disgusting comboed with the haste. The hits just feel so free a lot of the time. You just get a couple pals on the way, and it's just so free. Yeah, I mean, again, really not super interesting to me. Like Knight, that run out of the circle gameplay is not super cool to me. But if I had to place her in a tier list, is probably where it'd be. You could even argue maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower. It's just really hard for me to tell because I don't play her that much, and when I do, somebody's killing themselves on hook or a DCing, and I'm against the bot. And that's what it is. And it's hard for me to judge exactly. So I do want to say that. Has a couple really good purple add-ons and stuff, yellows even, that are pretty good. And yeah, not much else to say about her. I'm just going to put her there. Next up is the new Doctor, who also just recently got some love. A little bit of base kit discipline and his electrode really help him out. I don't know how people would play him without those before at all. It makes no sense to me. But yeah, the reason he is a solid killer, and there's a lot of builds you can run on him. The reason he's low is Behavior's been having this common theme recently with other maps, where they just want to chain 5 strong pallets in a line that they could just keep running in between, making his power almost useless in a lot of situations. And that hurts him. It just does. They're making these maps almost play themselves for survivors. So when he has to sit there timing his shocks to prevent them from driving a pallet, but they could just make 2 more 5 feet away, it makes him a lot weaker. It just does. So sadly, while I think the killer's awesome, and he just recently got one of the coolest skins for him that I've seen, which I'm going to do a little video on in a couple days here, he's not quite as good as he should be, simply because of map design. A lot of cool builds, like I said, you can run on him. A lot of really cool, interesting add-ons you can run now that those basic changes happened. So I'm going to try him out a little bit more. Maybe he's even a little bit higher than this, than I think, you know, because he does also have the ability to stop people from unhooking, similar to Deathslinger, being able to shoot them and stop them, which is really, really strong too. But yeah, for now, I'm going to be putting him a little bit lower in the B tier, even though I do really think he's cool, and we're gonna feel that out as we go. Next up, we got Wraith, who is just super solid. Yeah, he's got good mobility, really, really easy injures, solid add-ons with Windstorm, Shadow Dance, even some of the All-Seeings. Like, the Eerie All-Seeing is not bad. Silent Bell, the Clapper, Swift Hunt. I mean, they're just solid. Really, really simple, and just buff him. Just straight up buff him. And yeah, you know, you can get people injured really quick. You can cover the map. You can deal with a lot of the pallets, get them out of the way. And then once you get your snowball going, hopefully you did it quick enough that that he can just be downing people because they don't have anything to work with anymore. It's pretty much all it comes down to with Wraith. People can slam gens with toolboxes. So you're going to need that slowdown as well, which you can get good value out of. Pain, risk, pop, stuff like that. Really, really solid. And yeah, I mean, he's a pretty straightforward, simple killer. There's not that much I can say about him other than that. But I mean, he's good. He's a good killer. And really doesn't have a bad map that I can think of. So I'm going to put him right there. Next up in B tier, we got Nemesis, who... really, really fun killer. Honestly, he's one of my favorites to play. I just like using M2 only on him a lot of the time, if I can. But having the 3 hell states on people with all the second chances they already have, with the current gen speeds, with a lot of these maps, with a lot of chained loops, it can be a little bit tricky to consistently win on the killer. When you're getting value out of the zombies and stuff, though, and you get a map that's really workable with his power, it's really, really fun. You're basically forced to try and get the tier 3 at 5 gens, because if you get it past that, it can feel really, really sketchy, whether you're going to win or not. So that's really important. But if you can do that, it's very strong. It's a super strong chase power. Again, sometimes zombies just will literally swing on top of a survivor and just miss. I see it happen all the time. And it's like, what the hell? So don't count on those. If you're getting a little extra value from those, though, really, really nice. And if they just didn't get the speed boost from your first infection on them, I feel like he'd jump up quite a bit, honestly. But that buying them so much time just to even use your power as a chase tool really does kind of suck, in my opinion. So for that reason, I'm going to put him pretty low in the B tier. But I do think I think he's still solid. And I think he's really, really fun. Really good killer. It's weird to say. Against your average team. Very, very good. I got super consistent wins on Legion against the average team. I guess people who are talking and know what they're doing, they spread out in the corners. 5th hit's basically impossible at that point. The injures are totally free and can play around slowdown really well. Take care of a lot of the pallets and stuff on the maps that people are just going to lob down. Because without that 5th hit, he is just an M1. So, like I said, the stronger teams are going to make it a lot harder on him. He has really, really interesting add-ons for that, though. Eerie Button and the Julie's mixtape, I believe, combined make just sprinting through pallets easy. You just get everything broken up. People will still be figuring out ways to play around that once they know you have it. But it is a really, really good combo. I try not to mention Eerie's too much in these tier lists. That's why I didn't even dive into how disgusting plagues are. But it is a really, really good combo for taking care of resources. And he can move around the map really well, too, because he gets that bonus speed in his frenzy. And a lot of info off Killer Instinct that people can't hide from with Distortion or Calm Spirit. Really, really common combo nowadays, which I think is super lame. But, hey, what are you going to do? And, you know, I just think they're really good. The Legion's good in a lot of areas, but can still have a little bit of trouble downing people when they need to, because they suffer from the average M1 thing, which is, you know, yamming some pallets or playing around a strong loop like Shaq or something like that. It could just be hard sometimes. Next up in the B tier, we got the Clown. Extremely simple killer. And I do want to mention, too, I really haven't tried him since his little buff recently. So this could be a little bit off. I definitely think he's in the B tier somewhere and has been for a long time. Ever since his initial rework, I think he's probably floated around the B tier. And yeah, pretty much as simple of a killer as it gets. You know, you chuck pink bottle, you hit survivor, down them. It's hard for them to see. They're just slower. You're just faster. You get a free hit in most loops. There's a couple little areas where chain stuff can be a little bit annoying, but I mean, other than that, there's not much to say about him. Thankfully, though, the reason he is lower than I've usually put him in tier lists, which you guys have probably noticed, is Pinky Finger has finally been basically gutted. So you can only have one bottle at a time if you're running Pinky Finger. And thank God, because I thought that was the dumbest add-on. It was just stupid. Freebie, instant on like that while people are just slow. Like, you throw one bottle to slow them, throw another one to hit them. That is just dumb. It's a dumb thing in the game. And so I'm glad it's at least down to one bottle. And so, yeah, he's a lot lower now thanks to that. But the killer's still really solid, really, really easy, really, really simple. And, yeah, not much else to say about him. Okay, next up, I'm going to be putting Trickster right here at the top of C tier. We're going to start off C tier with Trickster. He can play like a 115, which is good. There's builds I felt that are really strong on him. With the amount of knives you have to hit on him, again, especially in a lot of the new maps, Behavior has just been putting so much junk everywhere that actually being able to get the hits with your knives, survivors can make it really, really hard on you. And again, like a good team will do. They'll make it a lot harder for you to be getting good value out of your power, which hurts him. You know, there's just so much junk everywhere. Breaking line of sight against him is good. He doesn't have anything crazy for being able to get a crazy snowball going or, you know, chain multiple injuries instantly like a Huntress can. Doesn't have any good mobility going on for him. No built-in slowdown. You just kind of hope that you're on more of an open map and then you can get really fast downs and then go from there. And he is a solid killer. But yeah, if you're just getting like a map like Hawkins and stuff like that, man, it can feel really bad. Like almost like he doesn't have power. But he can still play like a 115 now, which is nice. And yeah, I think his main strength is similar to Skull Merchant, where people will just really hate playing against him and just stop. That's his biggest strength, I think, in my opinion. Next up, we got Bubba, who honestly, right now in DBD, with all the lithe spam and sprint burst spam, people just sprinting at the speed of light for free with absolutely no thought involved at all, it's making his chainsaw a lot harder to get value out of. A lot of these maps have so many pallets now too that even though he can get rid of them pretty quick, it almost just doesn't matter because he'll just yam out the gens. He has no way to cover the map, like a map like Ormond or Erie or something. No way of moving around that. And they just have so much stuff to dump that even once you take out 10 pallets, they still have 10 more all in a line, like a free loop. And I would have said before, best camper in the game. Can't camp anymore, really. He can play around an area really well. Can't 3-gen anymore, really. So basically, they're just removing the things that made Bubba a pretty decent killer, and punching down on those kinds of killers like that, and at the same time buffing the maps for Survivor where they just have a ridiculous amount of pallets. Wonky hitboxes and stuff can make his chainsaw bumps really, really punishing as well. So just little stuff like that all just kind of adds up, and for me drops Bubba quite a bit. There are spots where he can feel good. There's maps that can feel good for him. But if it's not consistent, I got to drop the killer. And for that, he's in the C tier. Next up, I'm going to put Onryo, who has fantastic mobility. Very mediocre in chase. People can't really take hits against her. She's mediocre in chase. She can deny pallet stuns and then break them. People realistically should not ever be getting condemned against Onryo right now. And if they are, it should take so much commitment from the Onryo on almost every map, outside of a handful, that all the gens are just popping anyway, so she's not killing anybody else. And that's what it is. You know, it's just a little bit of extra slowdown for her with great mobility and a very mediocre chase power. So she's basically, in my opinion, just she wants to be demo, but is not, and kind of has a threat of maybe killing somebody if they mess up on certain maps. That's what it is. And I still think she's pretty cool and different, but yeah, nothing really crazy to me. And now is a killer that I used to think was much better, but after playing him again, I'm mentioning a lot of the new maps. Oh, but I've had this killer a lot higher before. Again, I played on stuff like Toba Landing with him, even Nostromo and stuff like that. And man, this killer feels terrible now. And it feels like Behavior, when they reworked a lot of the maps like Macmillan and Autohaven and stuff, they forgot to add more lockers to them. And Dredge has really suffered through all the map reworks and new maps added. It just feels fucking terrible. These maps are loaded with pallets people could just W key to, so the Remnant feels almost useless. You can't get those locker mind games in a lot of tiles because they just don't exist. There's just not enough lockers for him to be getting value out of. Takes a long time to build up Nightfall, which is great mobility, and it is really, really fun, but it takes a long time to build up. Hattie's Calendar should be base kit. The lockers being permanently locked and requiring you to run that add-on to not be trapped in it for 20 seconds is a joke. I don't know why they gave so much love to Huntress and stuff like that when they could have gave a little bit to Dredge, because the killer is so cool and really deserves it after all the recent stuff. So I would like to see some love given to Dredge soon. He feels really, really bad to me right now. He just does, even with the best perks. You know, before I had a pretty good win streak on him. I don't know if I could do that right now. It feels pretty terrible. So hopefully they look at him pretty soon. You know, I haven't played her enough of the new pig yet, honestly. So take this one with a grain of salt. I got her here. I look at Pig and it just seems like she needs a new identity, right? Like they have her with the ambush. It's just a worse Chucky dash. Her moving around the map and stealth is just a worse version of Chucky's. And then she's got the traps that maybe she'll be able to get on for a little bit of extra slowdown. I just think they need to rework the killer. Honestly, I don't think she's still, even just reading the changes, it doesn't seem like it's enough to bump her up out of C tier. Again, I haven't played her enough, so you can take it with a grain of salt, but for me, that's where she's at, and maybe I'm wrong. And next, we got Twins, who, in your average solo game, and you play a decent amount of Twins, and you're consistent with hitting Victor, sure, you could do just fine. Terrible hitboxes on objects make Victor feel terrible. It is the most punishing killer in the entire game, not just for you messing up, but for you hitting your power. And being punished by maps, having terrible hitboxes on objects and stuff like that where you just hit air. Feels really bad. One of the buggiest killers in DBD pretty much always. Thankfully, it doesn't seem like they have too many right now as I'm recording this tier list, which is nice. But yeah, they could be ultra buggy as well. But the main reason they are so low is there is so much counterplay to this killer. You could fully prevent the slugging just by hopping into a locker. Oh wait, they're kill switched as I'm recording this. Thank you, Triple. Oh, they're kill switched right now. That's right. That's right. Yeah, and you can fully prevent her slugging, which is the Twins' main strength, is the slugging, by holding W away once you take a hit and hopping into a locker. She can't even make it to it. Even then, tons of anti-slug perks. People pairing up together against this killer is pretty important. If they do that, you know, the Victor downs somebody, the other one boots him in the face, and they pick him up in 10 seconds with a "we're gonna live forever." All pressure's robbed. People can hold Victor hostage, which can be good for Twins sometimes. Most of the time, it's just not, though. Just moving around as a 115 without a chase power is not a good thing. It's just not good. So, yeah, again, with all the bugginess and all the counterplay for this killer, they got to be pretty low for me. And against your average team, you can do just fine, but it's not really just about you know, solo queue players. It's about Swifts. And so for that reason, boom, C tier for me. Next up, we got Myers, who is only in the C tier at all because he has something like Purple Tombstone. Again, he has some add-ons that are pretty powerful, like Infinite and the Tombstone and stuff like that. Even Hairbow, J. Myers Memorial, pretty solid add-ons. He's got terrible maps, and I get that in an average solo queue game, you could probably pop your tier 3 at 5 gens, but it'll never happen against a team that knows what they're doing and plays around a line of sight and drops a couple pallets. It's just not going to happen. They're calling him out, know exactly where he is at all times. He's never going to get it for free. People W key cross map as soon as he's even in close, like even within 40 meters of him. It's so hard to get really good value out of a killer who just M1s and vaults a little bit quicker. It is. So he's going to be in C tier unless he sees some impactful stuff. And there's maps where, you know, sometimes there are just maps where it's impossible to really stop him from getting the stalk. Something like Dead Dog with low loop setups. He's just going to stalk you and get some pallets out of the way. But then the majority of maps, it's really, really easy to play around his power and make it really hard for him. So, I don't know. I think the killer's really outdated. I don't hate him. You know, it can be fun to just hop on and chill, play M1 killer with an insta down here and there. But it's just not the same as Unknown or Chucky. Or, you know, it's just so outdated. Next up is Trapper Man, who, similar thing with Twins and Hag. There's a lot of counterplay. People can hold the traps open for their teammates, go around popping them behind him the whole time. You know, which the Eerie Coil can, or Bloody Coil can make a lot harder to do, but then Eerie Stone can reset him. You know, he's got little add-ons that can be nice for him. I wish he would just start off with all of his traps. That would be nice, kind of like Hag does, but you can't always get what you want. And, yeah, I don't know. Super simple killer. A lot of counterplay. Can do all right with basement, but outside of that, you know, like I said, the average team is just going to run away from basement. They're not going to let you get there. I mean, a Swift talking just isn't going to let you get there. The average team might. A Swift talking, really trying to win, it'll never happen. And, yeah, a lot of bad maps. Sometimes there's some nice maps like the swamp where your traps are basically invisible. That's really nice. You can get some free stuff like that. But a lot of the time when you're playing this killer, if they're stepping in the traps, it's the survivors messing up rather than you playing well. It's not mechanical. It's just they messed up most of the time. So he's going to be in D tier. You know, he can still be a good time to play in the average game, but he can just get bullied if people know what they're doing. Bullied. Next up is Freddy. And, yeah, worse mobility than Onryo. Literally doesn't have a chase power until you hit somebody. Should have red paintbrush base kit, but he doesn't. The rest of his add-ons are so mediocre that you look at him and laugh. Pallets are useless against people who are on comms and have windows or anything like that. The snare slow is so insignificant that you might as well just not even place it half the time. There's some loops where it is impactful. And that does feel good and rewarding once you know what you're doing with it. And you're like, yeah, nice. Got use out of his power. But it's just so mid. All of his power is just so mid that a lot of it could use tweaks. And at least red paintbrush base kit would be a little bit of love to this killer. But he's cheeks, man. He's cheeks. And now you're probably noticing there's one killer who's not on here. And against the Swift, communicating, add-ons included, with his power, the worst killer in the game, in my opinion, is Ghostface. This killer is just terrible. If it's a team talking together and calling out where you are, you have no stealth, obviously, and you'll basically never get a stock. Because somebody, even though his reveal mechanic can be super wonky a lot of the time, somebody's going to be coming up behind you to reveal you at all times, and it's going to take so much time to get it down. You know, even if you do get someone stock, they just pre-drop pallets. There's nothing you could do. There's no chase power, nothing interesting about him. Realistically, this killer is just terrible. He has nothing against people talking. Nothing at all. You can be a little bit fun in your average game, but yeah, there's not even, you know, drop leg knife sheath doesn't last long enough for the movement speed to be impactful in a lot of these maps with the pallet chains and how strong they are and stuff. It's just a terrible killer. Doesn't have any mobility like Freddy. Doesn't have a chase power. You just hope you can sneak up on somebody and maybe get a free hit here and there, but that's really it. And it's sad, but yeah, I think Ghostface is just terrible. I think he's the worst killer in the game.